This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
You know that feeling when you're about to score 30% off, but they want your number? Ugh. Give them your Line 2 number instead. It's a second line on your phone, perfect for nabbing promo codes without inviting spam to your party. Sign up for every discount under the sun, then block the junk texts that follow. You get all the perks, but none of the spammy baggage. More codes, less chaos. Visit line2.com/audio or download Line 2 in the App Store and get your shopping sidekick today. Because the only thing blowing up your phone should be good deals.
I think it's safe to say I'm settling into this chair rather comfortably with my horrendous time management, kind of taken after the main guy here, Mr. Barreiro. Went long with Muss, but it was fun. I started thinking football and talking football, and like time stops for me. I appreciate Muss giving me some time. We'll try to catch up here in this half hour. Pat Nicoletti will join in just seconds. Bottom of the hour, it's Johnny Athletic, John Krasinski, as we discuss some NBA news. And, of course, the start to the offseason for the Wolves. Lavelle E. Neal III will also join at 5:30 later in the program. Let's talk some hockey. Sam, are you a big hockey guy?
I'm not.
You're kind of like me, more of a hoopster? Okay.
I defer to the people who know what they're doing. I trust everything they have to say.
And we always trust Pat Nicoletti, who is kind enough to step in on 4th of July week.
I'm kind of, you and I text a lot.
We text and talk more than people know, actually.
We really do, and we talk football. We talk basketball.
Yeah, you have some interesting takes. There's no question about that. And I always love to hear them because they are usually so out of left field that it amuses me to know.
Are they, though? In reality, are they?
Sometimes, yes. Sometimes not, but sometimes, yes.
I think Boston is setting up to make a run at Giannis.
Oh, you do you? See, there we go. Another out of left field take. Okay.
That is, isn't it, kind of?
I like to call him Giannis, but that's okay. We can go with the G.
What do you call him? Giannis?
Yeah.
Giannis? I whatever, okay?
Yep.
The best player in the league.
Well, I'm not going to argue. He's top 2 or 3 for sure. He is my guy. I like to call him the Greek Freak. We have a kind of a good vibe.
Sometimes, Finney, and
look, I would love to talk hoops with you all day, but as you've just heard, I got you on late. I want to catch up.
That's fine.
I want to start with the news today that the Olympic players are back, or the NHL players are back in the Olympics starting next year in 2026 after a 12-year hiatus.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Nobody is against this. This is really welcome news, is it not?
Well, yeah, it is. And, we saw with the Four Nations Cup, it just brought our game to another level when you get to see the best in the world. Unfortunately, the Russians, when all that's another story, but they are banned from the Olympics, obviously. And, to have the Russians, if the Russians were in there, it would be even better. But, to have the best in the world compete against each other, and there's not money on the line. This is pure pride for your country and representing your country and playing against some of your teammates that you play against in the National Hockey League. It'll be fabulous in Italy this February.
Remind me what it does for the NHL. Is it like just a 2-week hiatus, and how do they make the games up, or how do they schedule? It's
about 2 to 3 weeks where they'll take their break, and it's still an 82 game schedule. They're not cutting the schedule back, and so it'll be. The guys back here will get their little break, and these guys will keep playing, and then right into their season again. So they'll be cramming in a lot of games, to finish a schedule.
Yeah, for sure. And as you said, the just huge ratings that the First Nations face-off got, I think made this a no-brainer. That you saw how the players bought in, and then, of course, the fans responded by watching. And there's just something different about international play. We saw it, obviously in basketball in France, when you see those guys collectively making $50-60 million a year, willing to go play for nothing just to try to win that medal. That's just something different. And and
these guys, and they played it like it was a Stanley Cup Game 7. Guys playing hurt, and and in fact, Kachuk, he didn't play for the next month after that Four Nations Cup, or maybe even longer, because he was got injured there, and a few other guys got hurt, but no, they the competitiveness of the elite player is off the charts in any sport, right? You mentioned basketball, and those guys want to win, and they want to win for their country, and it's fabulous stuff. I love the Olympics. Cindy, I'm sure you do too. Love watching all of the Olympic sports, because you just see that passion that these athletes bring out.
No doubt. And, for those of us old enough to remember not just the movie Miracle, but the actual game when it happened, there was nothing like that moment. And for me, not a big hockey guy, and at the time I didn't know who Herb Brooks was or who Mike Eruzione. Well, nobody knew who he was. Right. It shook everybody to their core. What? These kids are going to beat the Russians. And at that point, you're just kind of hooked on the Olympics. Like, this is what sports can be. Even a sport that I don't know that well or follow that closely, that resonated as a little chubby teenager
it really
to what sports can be.
Does it? I mean,
no.
I'll watch. Name a sport, and if it's for gold and it's for country against country, you're watching it just because you're sports minded. You love it, and you love the competition, and to see. These men and women, go at it. It's fabulous.
Yeah, I may not watch the marathon. My attention span's just not there to be that tuned in for how many hours that takes.
For the last mile.
Exactly.
Right?
Sure. It's like non-basketball fans that say, all I care about is the final 2 minutes of an NBA game. That's kind of how I am with marathons, I guess. It's just kind of how it is. All right, let's talk about your favorite NHL team. The Wild added Nico Sturm, returns to the team. That was yesterday. 6 more guys were signed today, including our own Tyler Pitlick from Centennial High, longtime veteran. Any of these 6 guys move the needle? Any surprises? What do you make of the 6 guys? What can you tell us?
Well, when you look at it, they're fine. They're veterans. They've played. These are the guys that will not contend for a roster spot. They will be in Iowa. They will be there as insurance in case, the guys on the main roster get hurt or injured. And we know with this team, we saw a lot of those guys up from last year. And so, the one concerning area that I had going into this free agency was finding a goalie. I don't know if they've accomplished that. They signed Cal Peterson, who was a terrific college goaltender, one of the best in the nation when he was at Notre Dame. Signed a free agent deal with LA. Didn't work out there. He's been trying to find his game, and signing here, maybe he'll resurrect that. But he'll more than likely be the number 1 guy in Iowa. And, should Wallstedt or Gustafson falter, he'll be your 3rd guy. Mm-hmm. And so, from that perspective, it's not your veteran guy that has been around and has played a lot of games that, you can call upon. You're going to be calling upon a guy who has struggled. And so we'll have to see how that plays out.
What else could be on the docket here for the Wild offseason? What would you like to see them do? What can they do with cap constraints, which aren't as bad as they have been? What do you think still is in store for this offseason?
Well, that's a great question. Not a lot.
I'm a great hockey mind, Pat.
Not a lot, to be quite honest with you, because what has happened, and people were expecting a big splash on July 1st because they had some money to spend, and that's when it was going to happen after the buyouts. All that money is off the books now, and they have money. Well, what happened was, it wasn't a great free agent market, and B, unknowingly the cap is going up. So what happens there? It allowed teams that maybe had guys that they probably couldn't afford and would have to let go to free agency. Well, now they will be able to sign them. And that's what pretty much happened. There just weren't a lot of guys there. So Bill Guerin didn't really have a lot of guys to go after. So he's sitting there now with about $10 million, and which is good, because now he'll be able to get in a game to make a deal down the road, whether it be at the trade deadline, whether it be at Christmas or whatever the case may be. If they have a need and they have teams willing to make a deal. So I think. I would have to say I think their roster is pretty well set. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, it's only July, and certain things could happen, with potential trades. But as far as free agency, I think I think pretty much it's dried up.
What are your July 4th plans? Got anything exciting going on? Do you have a tradition, or is it just kind of play it as it goes? You know what? I'm going out of town the following Saturday, so just going to lay low here, with the kids and the grandkids, and just relax a little bit. Beautiful, beautiful. I love it. Enjoy the holiday. Thank you for some time with the hockey news of the day, my man, and look forward to chatting with you.
I'm calling in some Saturday because I miss you and Double T.
The phone lines are always open for Pat Micheletti, my man.
Will you take my call?
Of course I will. Now, Blakemore might not, but I will.
Yeah. Have a great Fourth.
See you, Mick. You too.
Bye.
Pat Micheletti, kind enough to step in, talk some hockey. We'll switch gears at the bottom of the hour and welcome John Krasinski in to talk some basketball. That's a segment away. We'll come back. Sam and I will bat it around on the fan when we come back after these.
Yeah, the Fan and BigDeck.com wants to give you a shot to win bonus bucks with our national cash contest. Enter the keyword GRAND at KFAN.com now for your shot at winning. That's keyword GRAND. Enter it now at KFAN.com.
Want to keep your personal number private but still stay connected? With Line 2, you can get a second phone line right on your device with a super simple app and no need for another phone. Whether it's for online shopping, dating, or shielding your main number from spam, Line 2 is an easy way to manage it all. Ready for peace of mind without breaking the bank? Call, text, block, and more for only $9.99. Get started with line2.com/audio or download Line 2 in any app store today. Line 2, your second line simplified.
The Fan.
.424, back with you on the Fan. Dave Sinykin sitting in the big chair today. Sam running the show from across the glass. Bottom of the hour. This will be a shorty, as we like to say in the business. I went a bit long with Muss. Late 3 o'clock hour. Didn't want to shortchange Mick. So it'll be a shorter segment, and we'll welcome John Krasinski shortly after 4:30 for all the latest Wolves and NBA stuff. This one, though, I can't hold. The beauty of the 5 or so minute break for us is it gives you the perfect time to just sort of scroll through X, see if anything catches your attention. And something caught my attention during this past break that I don't want to wait for John. I mean, it's one of those, ESPN has 24 hours to fill. They're out there looking for content. And so they had a round table with Windhorst and Mark Spears and a couple other people batting around, where does Damian Lillard land? I'm sure you all know the Milwaukee Bucks waived Damian Lillard yesterday in a shocker move, tore his Achilles in the playoffs, will likely miss next season. He's in his mid-30s. He has 2 years left and about $113 million. Bucks didn't want to waste a year thinking Giannis wouldn't be happy with that, knowing they couldn't compete without Dame. So they add Miles Turner in a shocking move and waive Damian Lillard, which sets up the interesting scenario for him because he's getting paid by the Bucks no matter what. He's getting his money. So he could go anywhere for the minimum, which really does make things interesting. He can pick his spot, and whether that happens in this offseason where a team just says, join the organization, work out, learn the guys, learn what we like to do here. We're not counting on you next season, but maybe the season after, you'll be in a great situation. And all the usual suspects are being mentioned as potential landing spots for Dame. You hear Golden State, the Lakers, the Celtics, Houston, all those make sense. And Mark Spears comes out with his top 5 landing spots for Damian Lillard with those 4 teams I just mentioned. Number 5 was Boston. Number 4 was the Lakers. Number 3 was the Rockets. Number 2 was Golden State. His number 1 destination for Damian Lillard was the Minnesota Timberwolves.
I was going to say, should I do a drum roll?
I know. I thought maybe the pregnant pause just might be enough. It wasn't that pregnant. But you could imagine that caught my eye. It was about a minute and a half, so I listened to it during the break. And, from a basketball perspective, sure, right? Conley, 1 more year. He paves the way for Dame to come the year later, and suddenly Dame and Ant in the backcourt together. And look, we don't know what Dame's going to be like at 36, coming off an Achilles.
Yep.
He may never be Damian Lillard again, but he still might know how to put a ball in a basket. He just might not be able to move quite as much and play as many minutes, whatever. We can dream for a moment about what that might feel like. As a longtime Wolves fan, I'm guessing paying Dame $2 million to sit on the end of the bench next to Joe Ingles and heel is intriguing to you because the next year, let's play with Dillingham and Dame maybe sharing point guard minutes. I'm going to throw some water on the fire before I let you talk because Dame didn't want to be in Milwaukee. He never warmed up. And this is my hometown. I didn't take it personally, but I wonder if he ever made it to Kopp's Frozen Custard. Did he ever have a Kopp's burger? That might have changed his mind. But in all seriousness, he went through a family thing. His kids were out west. He's in Milwaukee, and that was very difficult for him. So I don't know how old his kids are. I'm sure they're still very young, and I'm sure he would still like to be much closer to them. And I would think a West Coast team would be his preferred destination, be that the Lakers or Golden State, maybe the Clippers. That would be my money would go that way. But as a Wolves fan, how on board would you be to have Dame time at Target Center in a couple of years?
Do I get to speak for all Wolves fans?
Yes, you absolutely do. That's what you get to do, sitting in that chair.
Yeah, I think, it's one of those things where it's cool to think about, but he may not play this coming season, and you already mentioned that. So, yeah, it's, do we pay him to sit on the end of the bench? I mean, then is it just like a 1-year deal and then he's gone anyway? So what does that look like? I don't know. So, it's cool to think about, and it would be nice to have him here if he was playing, but, it doesn't really do much for me that people out there are suggesting that he can land here. It's like if he was healthy, I'd be all for it. But
hell yeah, he'd still be in Milwaukee if he was healthy.
Yeah,
yeah.
So, but with him not with the unknowns around him, and you're right, his age, his condition, his mindset about where he wants to play at, I don't want to take up a roster spot for somebody who may not last in the long term.
That's fair. He is signed through next season, and then he has a player option for the year we expect him to be back and healthy. Now you might say, well, why would he sign on for the player option? Well, because it's like $60 million, and no one's paying him $60 million off an Achilles in his mid-30s. So he's opting in. So if you sign, whoever signs Dame, whether it's now or at some point in the next 12 months, you're going to have Dame for next season and the season after, and then he's a free agent. And again, the big bonus is you're only paying a minimum because he's already getting the money from the Bucks. You don't have to pay him a lot. So it's really low risk, but it's all about, is he comfortable where he wants to be? Minnesota's not going to be on his short list. He might love Ant. He might love the winter. I'm guessing he doesn't. But that opened my eyes that Mark Spears would go there and just throw a complete curveball. And all the teams you expect, everyone's talking about, he'll be a Laker, he'll be a Warrior with Steph. No, I see him in Minnesota with Ant. Yeah, we can dream. Let's dream along with John Krasinski. He's up next. The early start to the Wolves offseason, what the Summer League roster is starting to look like. I also want to get his thoughts on the Malik Beasley gambling investigation, what he knows about that, and some of the big NBA talkers. We'll catch up with the guy we like to call Johnny Athletic. He is next.
Ugh. Spam calls. Sound familiar? Introducing Line 2. Get a second phone number right on your existing phone. Imagine discounts, appointments, online forms. Handle it all without giving out your personal number. It's like having a secret weapon against spam. And when those unwanted calls sneak through, boom, blocked. No more interruptions, no more stress. Stay connected, stay protected. Keep your main number safe and out of harm's way. Ready to take back your phone? Visit line2.com/audio or download Line 2 in the App Store today.
I'm a fan. Back with you at 4:37 on a Wednesday afternoon. Dave Sinykin in for Dan Barreiro today. We are here till around 6:30 or so, and our conversation continues along the lines of basketball as we welcome John Krasinski, a regular on this program, to our show on a Wednesday afternoon. Johnny, how we doing, my man?
Doing good, Cindy. How's it going there?
It's going well. We were just talking about Damian Lillard's situation and how Mark Spears at ESPN believes the Wolves should be the number one destination for Dame. I'll get your laughter on that in a second. But I found it interesting reading today that Dame, who by all accounts is happy to be free and able to pick his next spot, can thank the Minnesota Timberwolves for his current situation, because when Miles Turner got word of what Nas was making, 5 for 125, he said, well, I'm worth at least that. Pacers wouldn't go that high. The Bucks basically did, and the rest is history. Kind of an interesting roundabout way that the Dame became a free man.
That is an interesting little twist. When you look at, the market setting and the sliding doors that may happen on the other side of it, do I think that it's, likely that Damian Lillard ends up in Minnesota? No, I do not. But it will not shock anyone to learn that the Timberwolves are one of probably 20 or more teams that have inquired about Damian Lillard, and just, they have shown some level of interest in it. There's so many things that you'd have to think about. Would Dame want to live here? All of, a million different hurdles and obstacles and things like that. But if indeed it surprisingly did end up happening, that would be a very interesting footnote in the history of that union, because that would only, to me, Dave, elevate Nas to even higher levels of local folklore around here if somehow he had a little bit of a hand in delivering Damian Lillard to Minnesota.
Yeah, no question. As I said, his kids are out west. I have to think that factors into where he can choose, because you don't have to pay him anything. You can pay him the minimum. So basically he can go anywhere. It's such an unusual spot to be in. All right, I assume that if we had told you, or if you had thought about the Wolves' first few days of free agency a week ago, you would have said, likely going to figure out a way to keep Nas and Randall. Nah might be a guy they can't hang on to, and that's how it played out. No real surprise in any of that, was there?
No, there wasn't. And look, I understand, fans being a little bit nervous, underwhelmed, when they see Houston doing what they're doing and the Denver Nuggets doing what they're doing. And, you get these big shiny signings or trades, and you're thinking, hey, basically this same team is being run back next season outside of Nickeil Alexander-Walker from a team that kind of got thumped in the Western Conference Finals. And so there's understandable angst out there a little bit. But if you had been paying attention, there was just no real avenue for the Timberwolves to make a big splashy move unless Kevin Durant said, yes, I want to come here. They're just, with the way that they're over the second apron and needing to get under the second apron going into next season to avoid some of the big time repeater penalties that are in that. When you look at kind of wanting to re-sign Julius and Nas the way that they did, And then I think you look at, just generally speaking, kind of an interest on the Timberwolves' part of what will it look like in year 2 with Dante DiVincenzo and Julius Randle, and what will happen when they have a full summer to prepare and they're not being literally landing on the tarmac in Minneapolis the day before training camp begins and kind of being thrust into the situation that way. Is it possible that they have improvements, coming just from that? And so I think there's reason to be optimistic internally for the Wolves, but I also do know that, that fans want to have big splashy headlines this time of year, and that just never was going to be in the cards for them outside of, by the way, $225 million that they have spent on Julius Randle and Naz Reid.
Right, and you go back to the move to make the trade was seen as, well, if you want Naz, you're going to have to figure out a way to move Cat, because there's not going to be a way to afford all the guys you want. And so that's the ramifications of that. You hit on where I wanted to go next, and that is the fact that that trade happened on the dawn of the season, and now you've got these two guys getting more comfortable. Dante in particular never really felt settled, and now he's got an off season with this team, and I think there's a real chance for growth there. And then if you look at the guys that are in line to get more rotation minutes, there's certainly room to see growth from the three young guys that everyone counts on in Shannon, Dillingham, and Clark, with expanded minutes, expanded opportunities. I mean, I would not be at all surprised if Terrence Shannon Jr. has a higher ceiling than Nickeil Alexander-Walker as an all-around player 3 years from now. That might be, PST material, but I do believe that kid has a chance to be something really special given the opportunity. So is that, besides the trade and those guys getting more comfortable, seeing the guys in the house taking that next step? McDaniels showed growth offensively as the playoffs went on. Ant's going to get better year after year. It's not too far-fetched to see some of the guys you're counting on taking another step next season, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is definitely an organization now with Chris Finch, with Chris Hines, the player development coach, with just the way that they have structured their culture. It's a place where players come and they improve. Every single year, Naz Reid adds something to his game over the summer and is better from the year before. Jaden McDaniels has made huge strides. Anthony Edwards just all of a sudden became the best three-point shooter in the league over last summer. And then you look at Shannon and you look at Clark and you look at Dillingham as young guys who, even though they are technically running it back, Dave, you're going to see a different rotation next year with those guys getting some minutes, with, kind of changes to what they do at point guard, with Shannon in the front court and in the back court with his versatility and just how they fill Nickeil's 27 minutes a night. They have different ways that they can go about it. And so even though the roster is very, very similar to the one last season, I think the on-court product has the potential to look quite different. And so I do believe in this coaching staff and these players to keep developing. And one of the major things and one of the major takeaways so far from this offseason, from the draft and from free agency, is that they really believe in Rob Dillingham, Cindy. I mean, otherwise they would have taken a point guard at 17, or they would have been a little bit more aggressive in looking for a point guard in trade and things like that. I mean, he was the 8th overall pick for a reason. And so all of their moves to this point tell you that they believe Rob Dillingham is going to be ready for a bigger role next season. Is he going to start? Is he going to come out? We'll see. But I think that there's a lot of anticipation about what he can bring to the table after a rookie season, which he hardly played at all.
With that being said, then, and likely if there's no trades happening, maybe one roster spot to fill, do you see them avoiding that spot, the point guard spot, and looking for a backup big man? You lost Luka Garza. You drafted a couple kids that are unlikely to be ready to contribute this season unless something crazy happens and Baron J knocks her socks off next week in Vegas. Is a big man maybe where they look to add one more body?
So as of right now, I can tell you that they are looking at those two positions. They're looking at backup center. They are looking at point guard. And so I think it kind of depends on what their options are. We see players taking deals, looking for the biggest opportunity for minutes as possible. Right now, the Wolves don't have a ton of minutes to sell at either of those positions. And so I think, for instance, I think they were interested in Mason Plumlee. He ends up going to Charlotte for a minimum deal because I think he sees more of an avenue to playing time. But they're looking at point guards. You mentioned Dame, maybe like a Brogdon, a Campaign, somebody like that are possibilities that you'd look at and explore, see if there's a match there as kind of a bridge point guard. Or, you look at the bigs that are available and just see if there's a more prototypical big man center to slot in to a spot after losing Garza, just in case Rudy or Randall or Nas would get hurt and they thin out your front court just a little bit. So I don't think that there's a specific player or a specific position that they are targeting right now, but I do think that it's essentially who is the best player that we can get available for what we have to spend. And if that's a center who wants to take their money, then they'll go that way. If it's a point guard, then they'll go the other way and just kind of see where it all lands.
Yeah, I would think a big man would look at it and say, if Rudy gets hurt game 3 and he's out for 3 weeks, what are the Wolves doing? Is Nas playing center? I mean, there seems to me an opportunity for a big man to have a chance. Again, it takes an injury, but who is the backup center right now?
Yeah, I think right now, basically, Cindy, they would just go to Nas as the backup center, and they'd play him at 5. They prefer to keep him at the 4, just given how he's kind of tailored his game over the last couple of years. But in a pinch, it would be Nas. And then you probably would see a little bit more of Béranger. Like, they are incredibly high on this kid over the long term. Now, is that next season? That seems like a lot to ask. But Matt Lloyd, who was part of the team that drafted him, after drafting him on draft night, said, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he could see some minutes in the NBA this season because they think he's ready to be a defender right now. And with his size, with his strength, with his athleticism. So I don't think they want to. I think they want to ease him into things. But if it was an emergency like that, yes, I think you would see him play minutes much earlier than expected. But mostly you'd probably see Nas in those 5 minutes, and then they just get creative. You could play Jaden McDaniels at the 4, Randall at the 5 sometimes if you need to. So they find other ways to do it. But yeah, a Rudy injury would not be ideal for them, especially early in the season.
We'll get our first look at the 2 rookie centers next week. When Summer League play starts, the Wolves open against the Pelicans, which gives Béranger a chance to go up against a lottery pick in Derek Queen. And for those of us nerdy enough to want to watch Summer League play, I've got that circled for next Thursday night. What other Wolves players do we know have committed to the Summer League roster? I read that they added a kid from Ireland, C.J. Fulton, who played at Charleston. Sané, who was on the Wolves, Iowa Wolves from Senegal, is going to play. They just added Des Watson, a guard from Loyola, who also played at Davidson, a 2-guard who's, I guess, defensive-minded. But what about the back end of the rotation, the guys we've been talking about? Are they TJ, Rob, Clark, Leonard Miller, Jesse Edwards? Are those guys all committed as far as you know yet to Summer League?
Yeah, I think all of them are going, Dave.
Cool.
And so that makes it really exciting. They will sign bodies to play behind them and maybe even later in the Summer League play. But I think at least through that first weekend, 3 or 4 games, you're going to see Rob Dillingham, Karen Shannon, Jalen Clark, Miller, like all of these, Jesse Edwards, Béranger, Zakarsky, like names that you know and recognize and are familiar with. And given sort of the stakes that are on the table right now because of the lack of activity in the free agent market, these guys really, I think, are going to want to make a statement in Vegas that, hey, we are ready to go here. You do not need to bring somebody else in, or, if someone is coming in, they're going to have to battle for minutes because we're ready to go. And so I think you're going to see a very motivated Wolves Summer League team, watching how far Dillingham has come and how he operates both as a playmaker and as a shooter is going to be incredibly intriguing because the Wolves absolutely need all of that from him. And, Shannon doing what he does, Clark. I think Shannon probably will play a couple of games, and that might be it. But I think you want to see a little bit more extended run from guys like Dillingham, Clark, Miller, Jesse Edwards, those guys, and just let them go and see what they bring to the table and just get a real idea. Because, I think there's 3 of those guys at least are going to play decent minutes for the Wolves next year, and that's always exciting when you're trying to turn on the TV in the middle of July and see what, try and glean anything of meaningful value from these games.
Yeah, it's always fun to see familiar faces when you're watching a summer league game. Talking to John Krasinski, bumper to bumper regular for many, many a year. Let's move off the Wolves for a second. Well, this is Wolves related, and that is the fact that I think a lot of Wolves fans found it rather interesting that Josh Minot and Luka Garza both end up in the same place with a team that not so recently won a title, the Boston Celtics. I find it interesting that they kind of coveted both of those guys. I think maybe I read some of your reports that the Celtics have long had eyes for Luka. He's been a fan favorite for sure. Nice opportunity for both of those guys to join a rather prominent organization.
Yeah, and it's, the timing is perfect too for him, Dave, because you're right. I mean, the Celtics inquired several times, over the last couple of years about possibly trading for Luka Garza, and the Wolves just rebuffed them at those times. But now they are going to the Celtics kind of in this sort of transition period. Jason Tatum's out for the year. They traded Porzingis. Al Horford could be leaving and going somewhere else. And so you're seeing that roster bump up against the second apron problems that the Wolves were kind of sort of facing, right now or in the last year or two, and why they had to trade Cat. And so there actually are going to be probably some minutes available to Luka Garza for sure, maybe to Minot. We'll see about that. But both players, I think the Wolves, certainly really liked them, liked their potential, but there was just not any real avenue for them to play minutes significantly with the Timberwolves next season, given where they stood on the roster. And both guys have been here for 3 years, and the Wolves did not want to stand in the way of either one of those guys going out and getting a real opportunity elsewhere if they could. And so when it became clear that the Celtics were interested in both of them, the Wolves were like, yeah, we'll let you do that. And I think it's the right thing to do, Dave. I mean, you never like to see young guys leave, young talented guys like they are, but they just weren't going to play here. And so Tim Connolly did the right thing and said, okay, we'll get a real chance with Boston, who's kind of in a remake, or not a rebuild, but sort of a reimagination of what they're doing. And the Wolves will kind of go forward with the guys that they have, maybe add 1 or 2 more and see how it plays out.
Breaking news, the Lakers found a center. DeAndre Ayton just signed with L.A. He cleared waivers about an hour ago, and he will be the guy that fills the hole in the middle for the Los Angeles Lakers. Does that move the needle to you in any way for a Lakers team that's trying its best to keep LeBron happy and try to keep that title contending window open?
Well, I mean, he's certainly a lot better and more talented than any of the players that they had at the center spot, as is. I mean, we saw the Wolves really just kind of have their way with the Lakers in that first round series, and Jackson Hayes just becoming unplayable. So Ayton has physical talent, but he's bounced around for a reason. And I think that it'll be interesting to see how he acclimates there. Luka could be great for him in just kind of making him very playable and making him a potent part of that LA front court, or he could kind of flake out. He's had a history of injuries, a history of attitude issues, and he's one of those guys who it's always been kind of a great idea in theory to bring in DeAndre Ayton, and then in the reality of it has always underwhelmed. So we'll see if Luka Doncic can get out any more of him than the Phoenix Suns or the Lakers or the Trailblazers were able to. But there's no question that it's an upgrade from what they did have. So I understand them going after him and trying to land him.
Last one for you. I got a couple minutes left. The gambling investigation being conducted on Malik Beasley, who had a great season with a surprising Detroit Pistons team. He's a free agent, has a chance to make a payday, either go back to Detroit, go somewhere else. and now reports that he is being investigated for prop bets as well as straight bets. As a player, we know this is a story that's going to be prominent as the years go by, as sports betting becomes more and more mainstream. But to see guys taking the chance to throw away their career to win a prop bet is so troubling and hard to believe. And again, we don't know if he's guilty, if he's innocent, what the investigation is, but what do you know about it? And how much do the Timberwolves as an organization try to hammer it home to their players that this is just something you have to stay away from?
Yeah, it's certainly constantly messaged to the Timberwolves, and they're not. I think every team emphasizes that with their players, and so it's something the league is cognizant of, but it's also something that they are open to criticism for, because when you get into bed with gambling companies the way that they have, yes, they bring in a lot of money to the coffers, but they also open up these kinds of possibilities because players can look at it and say, well, you are endorsing gambling by virtue of being in business and in bed with them. And so I'm going to give this a shot. Now, I think with Beasley in particular, and, certainly the Timberwolves have vast experience with him and understand, kind of who he is and his volatile off the court life. And few people are really all that surprised that he's been tangled up in something like this. His decision making has never been a strong suit. And one of the reasons that the Timberwolves traded Malik Beasley in that Rudy Gobert trade, in addition to the financial help that his contract had in completing that deal, was that they did not believe they could trust Beasley to stay out of trouble over the long haul. I don't think that gambling was a concern back then, but certainly he got into the legal issues with, the pointing the gun at the family outside of his home. And there were all sorts of other things that were surrounding Malik Beasley that made the Wolves very concerned about his ability to stay on the straight and narrow. And so now to see this happening, it appears, if this is true, that he just got tangled up in some financial difficulties and got desperate and was trying to pull himself out of it. And then he went down this road, and that is a tempting thing for any player. And so it's very dangerous, and the league has to really take a long, hard look at it and really emphasize, all of the means that are in place for players and resources to avoid something like this, because it really does strike at the integrity of the game when you have players that are trying to manipulate it that way. And, Malik Beasley is, probably the second, along with Jonte Porter of Toronto, unfortunately, of many that will come behind them because of it.
Have you seen the video that's kind of gone viral? Malik against the Wolves, end of game, 9 seconds left. No, 5 seconds left. Wolves up 9. The line's 8.5. Malik gets the inbound pass and goes coast to coast, just under the wire to get a basket, so that perhaps his bet covers. It's rather damning stuff when you know the investigation's going on and people now find videos and plays that sometimes might support what we're talking about. You can't hide this stuff, can you?
You can't. But I will also say that I'm careful in sort of looking at those videos too, because on the face of it, it looks like Malik just wanted to do it to get ahead of the spread and to beat it that way. So maybe he won money that way, or knowing who Malik Beasley is, he could have just wanted another bucket.
Stuff the box score. Yeah.
So I don't know that, if he missed the shot intentionally so that they were under, that would make me even more suspicious of it. But he was always thirsty for shots and buckets no matter what the circumstances was. So I don't know if that particular one was influenced by gambling or not. It very well could have been. But that one I looked at, I remember in real time when he went undid and watching that game, was like, I didn't even bat an eye because, Malik wanted 2 more points. Like that's
sure.
who he is as a player.
Makes sense. Johnny, you're the best. Have a great July 4th holiday. Thanks for giving us some time on a Wednesday afternoon, my man.
You got it. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
You bet. Johnny Krasinski, read his stuff at The Athletic. He's as good as it gets. We'll pause here. Sam has been working diligently on comprising a top 5 at 5. That is next on the other side of this break on The Fan.
Want to keep your personal number private but still stay connected? With Line 2, you can get a second phone line right on your device with a super simple app and no need for another phone. Whether it's for online shopping, dating, or shielding your main number from spam, Line 2 is an easy way to manage it all. Ready for peace of mind without breaking the bank? Call, text, block, and more for only $9.99. Get started with line2.com/audio or download Line 2 in any app store today. Line 2, your second line simplified.